Hello, everyone. Welcome back to All About America's Team, brought to you by Delahanty Media. My name is Ray Nickens, the Speaker of Objectivity, and I'm here with.
And the Chico.
And this is, I believe, our 9th episode so far, which is crazy since we started only a couple months ago. But with the season coming up pretty soon, we have a lot to talk about. But first, you can find us on Instagram at All About America's Team, and also on Twitter at America's Team, capital P, capital C. And also, we are streaming this live right now on YouTube. So if you wanted to find us there, it would be just open YouTube and type in All About America's Team, and it will pop up pretty easily. Shouldn't be that difficult. And make sure to stay till the end because we have a very special announcement that we will be getting into at the very end of our show before we wrap things up. But let's get right into it with our first and always first segment. What do you got with the news? Owen, take it away.
So this week is a big week for the NFL. They'll be doing roster cuts. And for me especially, I don't know about Ray, but this is always, especially with Hard Knocks, this is definitely one of the hardest things because with Hard Knocks and especially just following the team, you kind of fall in love with some of the guys that are on the bubble. But thankfully, as of right now, all they've done, former fourth round pick Reggie Robinson, number 41, they sent him to IR with a toe injury. And from my understanding, if you get sent on IR right now, you cannot play at all this year. So we will not be seeing Reggie until this time next year. Also, the fullback, Saywu, who I know a lot of people liked in the first two preseason games, especially the first one, with his neck injury, he was also put on IR, and I'm kind of happy about that because I think he looked pretty good, and to not have to cut him to just keep him on the IR was definitely a good move by Steven and company. Also, linebacker Anthony Hines was waived. You and my good friend Kyron Brown was released from last episode, and the wide receiver Brennan Eagles was also released. So as of right now, we don't have any big names getting released, but there's still many more cuts to come and or injured reserved people to be sent on to. Do you have any comments or feelings about the names that I just read out?
So just to clarify, Jalen Smith is still on the team, right?
Yes, as of right now, number 9 is still. I was about to say his old number, but yes, as of right now, number 9 is still has a place on this team.
Bummer. But
We'll see.
yeah, it was sad to see Kyron Brown go. He made a nice tackle in the first preseason game, but tough to see him go. Tough to see Robinson go down with the injury. He had some flashes. I remember seeing him in the first preseason game. But yeah, don't really have much to say on that. I'm glad everyone has made it through the first line of cuts. It means it's a pretty competitive, or I guess
Yeah.
it could be a pretty lackluster. There could be no cracking of the whip also, but I'm gonna be positive for this point because I'm gonna be negative later on in the show and just say that it's a very competitive training camp.
Yeah. I don't think anyone around the league has made any big cuts because I think there's a certain time frame that
Wait,
teams usually go.
I have a big cut.
What is that?
The Jaguars cut Tim Tebow. That's a very big
Oh,
cut.
well, yes, a big name, but I mean like big position because for young guys, there's a certain time when you can cut them and then send them right to the practice squad. So instead of having to have players sit, you can just send them right to the practice squad. But we'll see. Hopefully, I know the Cowboys usually and a lot of other teams are when teams cut big name players, they may not be great, but their names are big. They usually like to scoop them up and we'll see what happens there.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
besides the IR list, I saw earlier that with an interview with Amari Cooper, he said that he is close to 100% and he expects to have at least about 10 snaps this upcoming preseason game, which
How
I think
exciting.
which is really good. Yes, very exciting because this is the first time that we're going to be able to see him run, and we'll finally see how his foot's holding up. So hopefully he will be able to stay healthy because even though he may not be your favorite player, Ray,
Mm.
he does have a he does fill a hole, and with if he does go down, it will make life for CD and Gallup and everyone else that wants the ball. It will make their lives a lot more difficult. So hopefully Amari can stay healthy and hopefully he'll have a big year. I know he expects a lot from himself, and I feel like you and I can both agree. A few years ago, getting 1,000 yards was like something big, but as of right now, getting 1,000 is kind of like mediocre. It all depends on how much further up from 1,000 you can go. And Amari said that he expects way more of himself than just 1,000. So hopefully he'll be able to be healthy for the 17 games, excuse me, and hopefully he will be healthy enough and he'll be able to show you that he can be a good wide receiver on the road, even though in
Mm.
years past or
Mm.
seasons past, he has either been injured or been taken out of or taken himself out of the game for reasons that you and I do not know of.
Or he was removed from the game also.
True. True, true.
Yeah. Yeah, well, let's just put it this way. He's not my least favorite player on the team. So he's got that going for him. And yes, I will agree with you that with the NFL moving to a more passing friendly league and corners not being able to be as physical as they once were, 1,000 yards does not mean as much as it did before. I do agree with that.
Well,
And I'm very glad that Amari is playing. So should I pencil him in at 94%?
he said that he was close to 100. I think his biggest thing was that I think he had to have a second surgery. And
Mm-hmm.
usually the second ones kind of, because Dak had to have a second surgery too, which I think might have might have pushed back his recovery. But he said this is the healthiest he's felt, and he's also lost a lot of weight. So he looks leaner, which is great. But we shall see how well it translates onto the field.
We will see. Absolutely. So I'm
And
ready to move on into our.
there's one more
Um,
thing before you get
okay.
before you get into that.
Okay.
Safety Israel number 38, basically. I don't know how to
Mm-hmm.
pronounce his last name. He's gotten a lot of hype in around the Dallas Cowboy front office. As of right now, he hasn't really played all that much, but he has 5 tackles, which sadly is third most for the Dallas defense.
Mm.
He has a 76.5 defensive grade, which is the fifth best amongst rookie safeties, and he has a 75.9 coverage grade, which is second best around the rookie safeties, and he has an 81.3 tackle grade. And based on his snaps, he's had 8 snaps at the line of scrimmage, 26 in the box, 25 at free safety, and 14 at slot. And as you and I both know, Cowboys have not had a good free safety or safeties in general, consistent safeties in a long time. And I know this is preseason; he's a rookie, but those numbers, I think he was a late round guy or maybe even undrafted. I forgot, but to be top 5 in most categories against safeties that were like the safety that the Raiders got from TCU. It's good company to be around, and I'm looking forward to what he can do. Hopefully he'll get some snaps. Hopefully he'll get more snaps in the next preseason game, and we'll be able to secure a start. We'll be able to secure a spot on the 53-man roster.
Yeah, I'm very confident he will make the team, and his performance in the very few time he's gotten on the field this preseason has been very promising, and it would be great to see him out there in that starting safety position if he's prepared and ready for it. Because to be honest, I don't think the Cowboys organization understands what the term safety means, or at least the people in the organization who've been here for the last 20-ish years. So it's nice to see some promise from a rookie safety, especially since he's on his rookie deal and we won't have to give him a ton of money for a little bit. So we'll be able to save in that department.
You and I have both been Skip Bayless pounding on the table for them to draft a safety, but also in news before we get into the important stuff. A few years ago, remember when the Cowboys drafted Tristan Hill?
I do remember that.
Do you remember that safety you and I both wanted, who went to the Chiefs? Or no, yeah, the Chiefs. Juan Thornhill. He is now playing with the third string. So I don't know if they're doing that because they have so much more depth, or he's fallen down the roster, or the front office hasn't or has kind of mixed feelings on him. But to go from one of the better safeties in your draft class to now playing with the threes, I don't know what they
Was
plan on
this
doing with him.
did he get drafted this year?
No, he was drafted in 2018 with Hill. Because I remember I wanted the Cowboys to draft him, but then they drafted Hill for some reason.
I see.
But he is playing with the third string squad. So hopefully now the Cowboys, they'll never do it. But if for some reason Stephen Jones woke up feeling dangerous, I would not be upset with them going after him.
Well, see, if Stephen Jones were to wake up feeling dangerous, I would hope he would use that energy to trade Jalen Smith and perhaps another player, but I won't say that other player's name due to my positivity streak this first few minutes.
So why don't we get right into the to the meat of the show? Why don't we start talking about Hard Knocks and last
Okay.
week's episode, and the newest episode is tonight. So everyone, be sure to watch that, because I know you and I will be talking about it next show along with a lot of other things. So why don't we get right into it?
Okay. Yeah. So this has been a long time coming because the first episode of Hard Knocks actually aired two Tuesdays ago, but it's been a busy few days. I've moved into Waco. I am now in Waco. Owen's still in New Jersey, but he's coming back soon. But yeah, Hard Knocks. I was pleasantly surprised, as you saw from my tweet, overall of the show. But as there were a few things I wasn't very happy about, but I'll just start with the positives from my end. I really enjoyed the look into the players, like their attitude and what makes them tick and all their personalities. I really enjoyed that. That was cool to see because you don't see that during the game or videos. They're all, if they go up on the podium, they're answering very bland answers to questions that don't seem very intelligent sometimes from the media. So that was nice. It was nice to get a little bit more from the quarterback, Dak, and then also from Zeke, and hear Micah Parsons out there on the field, hear him energetic to play and being disappointed that he wasn't able to play more. That was nice to see. It means he wants to prove himself and get out there. And a little thing that I caught on to during the episode that I don't know if maybe Owen caught on to was when he was talking to Leighton, and he was talking to Leighton like, "Oh, they pulled me. I really wanted to play." And Leighton's like, "Well, you don't really like. You should just make your plays that come to you and not try and go and get every play." I could take it as maybe he's a little bit feels a little threatened by Jalen because Jalen's got, he's the new guy in the block. He's showing all this potential and making all these plays, and maybe Layden feels a little bit threatened. But I don't know why he should feel threatened because his job is very safe as of right now. Let's see what else. I I was surprised that Jerry did not get 80 to 100% of the screen time. He was out there a little bit, and he is very part of my negatives of the show. But I was surprised to see him not as much. I'm was very concerned when they got to that special teams meeting. Um, I was like, why? What are we? It was just a weird special teams meeting. Let's just put it. They did not really talk about special teams in that meeting. So I was like, what? Why are we in a special teams meeting not talking about special teams? I mean, maybe that's why they blew that punt return coverage because they weren't talking about how to run a punt coverage before the first preseason game. But I'll let you go into your positives, and then I'll kind of talk about what I wasn't very fond of during the episode.
So I agree with you on the special teams meeting. I was obviously you saw the episode before I did, so I got a raging text from Ray. Why are they talking about this? And it was weird. Um, I think Fossil is loved, especially when he was with the Rams. So and based off the stats of the special teams, before he came, we were horrendous. And then since he's been here, we've been a lot better. So he can talk about whatever he wants to talk about in special teams meetings because based off the numbers, it seems to work. I was surprised with how vocal Dak was. I think I didn't. Obviously, the quarterback will talk a lot, but he's never talked like this before with so much like fire and the language that he used. I was not expecting any of that. But it felt good to see him want to get out there. I think a big reason, from what I got at least from the show, was that the Cowboys wanted to save him from himself because as you and I both saw when he went down this ankle injury, he tried to pop it back in to get up and either walk off by himself or go back out and play. So I think he has the warrior mentality, and he'll do whatever he can to be on the field. And I don't think that he wants to give up any snaps. So if the Cowboys let Dak do Dak, he would have kept on throwing for the last week and a half. And for all we know, he could have hurt his shoulder even more, even worse than it was before. And we could be dealing with a torn shoulder or out for the year. So thankfully, it was a weird injury to begin with. You and I can both agree on that. But it was good to see him get so fired up about being out. I don't know why he took it out on Gilbert, but it's another conversation for another day. I liked how fired up Parsons was. It felt good to see like him pumped up, and for the first time in a while, like we can see the defense like excited and them actually making plays. Because last year, it felt like the defense was on snooze the whole game. So it felt good for them to have some drive and getting excited when Mike got the interception and just talking about just it just felt good to see positivity around the team that hasn't had a lot of good things to talk about in recent history. I was also surprised that Jerry did not get as much screen time as he did, but I'm sure at some point in time he in the contract he that if he had to sign one, he probably had to have this amount of time in it. So maybe we'll see more of him tonight. Hopefully not, because a lot has happened since the last episode that I'm looking forward to in tonight. But it was I love what HBO does on Hard Knocks, and I like the show a lot. But some of it was bad, like the special teams meeting and some other stuff. But one thing I definitely wanted to say, and then we can move on to what you wanted to talk about. it didn't look like Dak and McCarthy had that great of a bond. Now, a reason for that could be because they weren't really around each other much, but hopefully it'll improve. But I felt like there was some walking on eggshells. Now, I don't know if you saw that too, Ray, but that's something I definitely don't want to see is the head coach and the franchise quarterback not having like a great relationship, but hopefully it'll grow and it'll get a lot better. But those are my takeaways from the first Hard Knocks episode.
I'm very glad that you brought up the whole Dak not really syncing with the head coach because that's a very interesting point. Um, just I'll start with that. I did see that. It didn't seem like he really liked his head coach very much. From what I saw, I think honestly, it could be maybe he doesn't respect him and doesn't think he's that great of a head coach. And also, like there were reports, and I think they're factual reports, that he was very upset when they fired Jason Garrett before they brought in McCarthy. So who knows? Maybe he's still upset about that, and that distaste for this new coach coming in is still there. So who knows? Maybe we'll find out about that. Maybe we won't, or maybe it's just fiction, and we're totally misreading the situation from a TV show. But I did not. I was not a fan of McCarthy. This is the first time we've really like gotten to hear or see McCarthy, how McCarthy operates on this Hard Knocks with the Cowboys. We didn't really get much last year because of the altered off season, and I didn't really like his whole how he coached. First thing, there were many times where he'd go up to either Steven or Jerry and be like, "Hey, what do you think? Should we play Zeke for this game, or should we limit Zeke to this amount of snaps, or should we limit Dak snaps, or should we do this?" And I was just like, "You're the head coach. You need to make those decisions. Those are your players. Jerry's the owner, and Steven's the general manager. You're the head. They run the team, but they don't run your players and they don't coach. So you got to get with your the offensive coordinators and the defensive coordinators and your staff and figure that out for yourself." Now, I know that's not as much his fault considering Jerry's a very hands-on owner and operates in places he shouldn't operate, but still, if you're from a coach who's won a Super Bowl that was outside of the Dallas Cowboys organization, whether or not I think that he actually, won the Super Bowl, if he was carried by his quarterbacks, he should have the enough, character and strength of will to make his own decisions as the head coach of the football team. And just moving regarding to his relationship with his players, his speech. I know you liked his speech, but I don't think it really hit with the players. They would pan to the crowd, and you would see some players like just with their eyes just glazing off over his head into space, or some guys like had their hands over their head, I think, and it didn't seem it was resonating with them very much. And he was using phrases like, gosh, I don't even remember. It was like something Harry doesn't work here, or
Yeah.
half-ass Harry, or just like these like cliches that he's just like, "Oh, I know, like we don't need these cliches in this building." And then he goes on and says another cliche that nobody uses those terms anymore. There's another thing that he said. He said something like he was going into like, you work really hard to win this championship, and then you put all this work, and then you finally get up there and you realize that the trophy's heavy. I'm like, why did you end with the trophy being heavy? That has nothing to do with what you were talking about putting in all this effort. And it seemed very forced. It seemed like he wrote the speech for the episode and did a really horrible job writing the speech. That's what it kind of sounded like to me. it doesn't seem like he's that great of a public speaker, not a public speaker, but like it doesn't seem like he can like jumpstart his football team very much. And um that's just me. Also, there was when they were about to do the pad day, he's like, oh, it's pad day, it's pretty quiet, for pad day. And I know they don't really hit as much now, but not to say I'm influenced, but there I was watching or I saw a clip from Skip and Shannon's show, and Shannon was talking about how on pad day it was usually quiet, but he was always the guy to hype up the players. And there's also like this one coach who'd get the players going, like first padded practice, get them riled up, and it didn't seem like that happened at all. So that was a little bit of negativity. I'm like, where's this fire from this team for the first padded practice of hitting? Like, it's like the first step into the season. Preseason's coming up. Usually guys are, ready to get out there. Just, it didn't seem very, like, the locker room just seemed a little bit hazy. And I'm not going to get too annoyed with the whole Austin Powers thing, because I've seen Austin Powers and I think it's pretty funny. But I'm just gonna say it was very odd that he used Austin Powers to explain these Mojo moments. One, I don't think Mojo I think Mojo didn't really seem to resonate with what he was trying to have them do. It was more of like a momentum thing. Like all those plays he was calling out was like a momentum swing in the game, if you know what I mean. But he was phrasing it as like mojo. And also, all those players are like, we're like 4 or 5, like 2 or 3 or 4 when those movies were coming out. So while they were laughing, it seemed like they were laughing at him, because like every time they were talking about, oh, mojo moment, it seemed like they were like poking fun of the whole mojo moment thing in and of itself. So that's just me. I don't think really the players, I mean, I'm sure they respect him because he's their head coach, but I don't think they're really like bought into Mike McCarthy. And I could be totally wrong, but if the Cowboys were to start off the season 1-4, 1-5, I could go right back to these Hard Knocks episode and point to specific reasons why they're not starting off strong. And all those reasons go back to Mike McCarthy. And he kind of honestly ruined the entire episode, because I every day after the episode, I'm like, gosh, I really don't like Mike McCarthy. And it's been 2 weeks, and now that's just kind of all I really think about from the episode. So that's just kind of my negatives about it. Hopefully he looks better in the second episode than the first episode, because there's always room for improvement. But that's just basically what I got from the first episode on his leadership. And I'd love to hear what you have to say regarding what I just said.
Okay. So you said a lot. So the first thing that a lot, but one, talking about like the pads, Micah was definitely excited. He was really excited, and he obviously wasn't by the whole team, but the rookies are obviously going to be more excited than, let's say, Tyron Smith or Lyle Collins. So it was good to see Micah excited.
Mm-hmm.
I totally get what you mean about Mike not being respected in some clips. But one thing that I definitely think about McCarthy that I thought was good was when last year, when they weren't doing the greatest, some people found what Mike did to be a little out there, or some people said that it was racist or a lot of different things about it. When he had he had the players hand around a sledgehammer, and he had a watermelon, and then they would destroy it to like hype everyone up. So I think that was something that he did to help to pump up the crowd. Talking about pumping them up for padded practices, for all we know, they could just not have recorded that or put it into the episode. I don't know why they wouldn't. So I guess it just didn't happen. But with the mojo moments, the if I don't know if you saw, but the players they were excited and they were like running to the actual play when that was happening. So maybe Mojo and like the Austin Powers references might have made them like laugh because Mike's 30 years older than them. So that might have been like, haha, you're old. But I think the momentum shift, like you were talking about, I think that definitely resonated with the players. And hopefully we'll see more of those moments in tonight's episode. But I had,
Really quickly,
yeah,
if I was trying to inspire my football team, I would pull up John Wick clips, and that would be sure to get my team fired up. But that's just me. I would use John Wick as my hype train. Um,
okay.
what was the other thing I had? Oh, the whole the watermelon thing. I Yeah, I remember the watermelon thing. Um, and I just remember laughing that I'm like, oh, they smashed a watermelon after practice today. I did not hear that that he got canceled for it maybe being racist because it's just a
Yeah.
watermelon.
I
But
don't think
that's
Shannon
kind of
liked
weird.
it. Yeah, when Skip and Shannon talk, Skip, I don't think Skip liked it. And I don't
Well,
think Shannon did either. Obviously, if I'm wrong, I'll have to rewatch it. But from what I can remember, I don't think they. I think Skip laughed at him. Skip hates Mike McCarthy, and he commented about his weight and how he does not look like he's fit to be a head coach. Um,
hey,
I kind of
while I don't agree with him saying that on air, I totally get his point because I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this show, they've all had like a head football coach or like a head basketball coach who's like, get on the line and run sprints. You know, and then you're just like maybe frustrated and you're just thinking like, gosh, like I'm running sprints. Like, shouldn't you be
yeah,
running sprints? Like, just I totally get what he's talking about. But yeah, I don't think you should say that on air. But it's
yeah,
also Skip Bayless. He says whatever the heck he wants.
yeah. But
Like,
even with Mike and the aura around the franchise, I don't know if you've been listening to what's been happening in Washington. After I say this, then we can move on to the next segment. But as you know, Ron Rivera, he's fully recovered from his cancer diagnosis, and he's very upset with his players for not getting the vaccine. And he has literally called them out without saying their names about how they need to get the vaccine and worry about other people rather than themselves. So I would much rather have Mike talking about Austin Powers than Ron literally calling out his team for not caring about him. And then other players, other I forget who it was. I don't think it was on Washington's team, but another player, an ex-player, like called out Rivera, and then he was quote unquote like canceled. I hate using that word, but he was like thrown under the bus. Like, why are you calling him out? Like, he's a recovering cancer patient. Like, he deserves to be upset. So
yeah,
they're
calling out
give and take.
players. Yeah, calling out players for a vaccine shouldn't be public. It should be behind closed doors.
Yeah, exactly.
So, um, like especially with like a sensitive situation like that. Just one of those things where someone gets like super annoyed and they just rant to the media. Um, Jerry does that a lot. But yeah, that's all I got to say about Hard Knocks. I'm looking forward to this upcoming episode. Um, just seeing some more practice, in-depth practice look. I watched some of the 2008 Hard Knocks back when the Cowboys were featured before this, and
Mhm.
enjoyed those too. Got to see Felix Jones coming in as a rookie, and Tio, and um, Barber and Tony and all those. It was a decent practice. I don't think Wade Phillips is a good motivational person either. So him and McCarthy are in the same boat. But Wade Phillips wasn't that great of a head coach anyway. So that's all I kind of got to say about this last Hard Knocks episode, and just ready for the next one.
Obviously McCarthy, he did win a Super Bowl, and whether you want to chalk it up to to him having a great team or something, but he still had a big part of that win. And Rodgers hasn't. He's been relevant. The Packers have been relevant, but he hasn't won anything. Because an NFC Championship is great, but if you wanna hang up banners of NFC Championships, kind of like when Gonzaga posted like
Well, I mean, they can't even hang
runner
up that
ups.
banner because they lost.
Okay, but so even if banners that aren't Super Bowl champions, like they mean nothing. So if we look back 3 years, like Aaron Rodgers, he's great arm talent, but he hasn't won anything big since the exit of his coach. And them two, they needed to separate because Aaron didn't like Mike, and there was a whole lot of drama. But Aaron didn't like Matt Lafleur, as you would call it, and so would Stephen A. Smith. But it's obvious that Aaron's a diva, and Jordan Love had a pretty good preseason. So I think Aaron will be getting kicked out of uh, Lambeau way sooner than expected.
Well, Aaron wants to leave Lambeau, so he'll be
Yes.
walking out as happily. But do you want to get into the preseason game?
Sure. I both first quarters for the first preseason game and the Cardinals preseason game were great. We got to see something we never see, which was turnovers, fumbles even.
Yes.
It was a great thing to see. Keanu Neal all over the place, just like his linebacker friend Micah. But I was a
Mm-hmm.
big fan of that play where Keanu like wrapped him up and then Micah was right behind him to rip the ball, like so that Keanu could
Mm-hmm.
rip the ball out. I was a big fan of how they tackled, and I think slowly but surely Neal is securing either a starting role or very close to it. I think a lot of people, as soon as they signed him, said he would be the attitude of this defense because before he injured himself, he was looked at as one of the best safeties in the league, as well as a cornerstone of the Falcons team for years to come. And obviously, the worst injury you can get, I think, in sports, one of the worst besides ACL tears, is Achilles tears. And we can get into the Achilles brothers a little after this because they made a statement about that.
Mm-hmm.
But
They did.
hopefully, Neal can fully recover as well with Hooker, and they can both make a big impact on this team because the first time in a while, even our backups are basically household names, and we haven't had that in forever. So to see Malik Hooker out with the twos and Neal basically as a starter in preseason games, it felt good. CeeDee Lamb played for a little bit. I'm in a group chat with a bunch of Cowboys fans on Instagram, and I was not looking forward to Lamb being in this game because the players that are the most important to your team, you kind of don't play them all that often. But in hindsight, it was definitely the best for him to go out there and line up and have to run some routes. But it was a closer game. They scored more points than I would have thought they would have. But I think that preseason game out of any of them, either that one or the last one, are definitely going to be the most snooze fest worthy. But in preseason, you're looking more for personal gains over overall wins. So players like Neal and even Gallup looked good. Israel, from how we were talking about earlier, Micah. Just, I would be I'm way more content and satisfied with them having big games than the Cowboys beating a team by 30. But I know that you've been waiting. You've been on the edge of your seat for the past week to talk about your up and coming quarterback. So
Yep.
I'll let you get right into it. I want to hear all about it.
Yeah. So first off, I just want to give a little bit of a summary from what I got from the game. I will be completely honest. This game, I saw a little bit on the TV, but most of it I watched through the ESPN app on the Gamecast. So I wasn't really not sure exactly what was going on, but just basically Gilbert started. Dak was once again not present, although he did actually travel this time. So that was good. He was there. Gilbert did not start off very well at the beginning, but his last drive he looked a lot better, and they got some points off that drive. However, his buddy Colt, who we filled in for in the Alabama championship game, he looked very good. He was, slicing and dicing up our defense all the way down the field. And once they got close to around, the 20 or the 25-yard line, the Cardinals started to, run their running packages, and they didn't score any touchdowns, but they kicked some field goals, and that was nice. So Colt looked good. He's a very complimentary backup, so I would not be upset if he were to be a backup for the Cowboys at some point. But defense looked pretty good, solid. There weren't really any huge big plays given up, which was nice. Our defense's problem last year was giving up a ton of huge chunk plays and big scoring plays, and just letting the offense have whatever they want. But it was nice to see Ben go out there and throw his first career touchdown, and also the first touchdown for the Cowboys for the preseason. Nice out route to the receiver in the back corner of the end zone. He kind of ran a little bootleg. It was a good pass. It was a nice pass. He limited his turnovers from 1 to 0. Didn't really make any questionable decisions. That's all I really got from the preseason game. Well, Neville Gallimore went out with an injury, and they're saying it's the best case scenario, and he'll only be out 4 to 6-ish weeks. So that's good to hear. But I'm glad no big name has gone out with like a torn ACL in the preseason from our team. Knock on wood. Yeah, that's been nice. It's been nice to get through these first 2 games. Doing fairly well in that department. But special teams did look better this game. So I guess they had actual special teams meetings this last week. But I mean, we got that touchdown, and we were actually ahead for a little bit, and then the Cardinals got a few field goals and won the game because Matt Prater just he makes the field goals. He's pretty good at that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to next week, and we have a little news for next week about the quarterback. Just wanting to we'll wrap up the show with talking about the quarterback and what's kind of the next step for the team these next few weeks in just a second, if you're ready to do that. And then of course we have our announcement at the end of the show. So
ready whenever you are.
Yeah, and we're doing quite well on time. Usually we are, we're staying on track of our time, which is nice. But yeah, ready to move on.
We have to thank Eli Manning.
But we haven't gotten to something. I will think of something, but I know I'm waiting for the perfect opportunity.
Okay. So yeah, I guess I'll start off for next week's preseason game, and then we can work off of that. Hopefully Micah will get the most snaps out of his preseason career this weekend. I love that he's chomping at the bit to play more. Also we talked about before with Van Der Esch, I don't think he's intimidated. I just think basically when Fields said the game was slow for me, I think as you go on, the game slows down. And if Micah is running all over the place, and if he's on the left side of the field and the ball carrier is running to the other side and he's running all over the place, he's going to tire himself out and he's ultimately going to take himself out of the game. So I
If
think what he was
if
trying to
Micah
do,
Parsons runs to the left side of the field and the ball is going
other
to the
side.
other side of the field, I will be very concerned because I will the first thing I'll think of is why is the headless horseman Jalen Smith in Micah Parsons' uniform? Because Micah Parsons usually hunts the ball. He doesn't run away from the ball. So unless
I'm
you
just
just
saying if he's on the other
yeah,
side of the field, like position wise.
yeah, I got you. I just had to take advantage of that.
Of
Carry
course.
on.
So I just think that he was trying to tell him to like let the game slow down and let the game come to you instead of obviously go out and get it, but don't take yourself out of games because you said from draft night I wanted a cornerback and you wanted Micah. I thought the Giants were going to take Micah. I thought they were very stupid not to take Micah. So I was not. You were obviously saying from day one, Micah is going to be the leader of this defense, but he cannot be the leader of this defense if he is tired in the middle of the first quarter. So that was what I got. Maybe he meant something else. Maybe it was like be bad for a while so I can be good. But
Yeah,
I think if anyone were to say that, it would be the headless horseman, number 9. I
yeah,
think Leighton is much more. He's a lot better and he's also been a lot better with the press and talking about how I need to be better instead of
mhm,
number 9 saying watch the film. And the Cowboys did watch the film, and that's why they drafted two linebackers, and that's why you are barely playing. Or no, sorry, that's why you are playing because in preseason, if you're playing a lot, that's pretty bad. So we
mhm,
all watched the film. You should too.
mhm.
So going back into next week, I'm looking forward to players that are on the bubble to assert themselves or show they've not deserved to be on this team because I think this is going to be one of the more competitive teams, which I love. I feel like in years past with Garrett, everyone was assigned their job from day one, and you didn't really have to worry about it. But players like Connor Williams, who's been a starter and who wasn't even drafted by McCarthy, may not have a job. Hopefully he will, but going into it, I thought he was going to be the left guard. But as of right now, he may not be. They have him at center. They have him moving all over the place, which I like because it keeps the players having to work and not just being comfortable and settling down and being like, yeah, I'm starting, so why should I care? But going into the most important part, I do hope Dak plays. Hopefully, it's not for a long time. Hopefully, it's just a few series, a few plays, a few throws. But from the reports that I've gotten, he feels a lot better, and we still have a few more days until Saturday rolls around. So hopefully, he'll be able to progress throughout practice, and he'll be able to play, but not for a long time. But he'll be able to throw a little bit. But if he doesn't play, they already said that he won't be playing next week. And like I tweeted out, if Dak, as you've said multiple times on the show, if Dak does not start off strong, it's going to be a rough game. And if he does not see live action since he injured himself in October, if he does not see live defense since the Giants game, then we will be in trouble because the Bucks defensive line is pretty dang good. And even though our offensive line is good, it'll it'll be a good test, and I would like to be able to sit down on that Thursday night and say, yeah, Dak played against Houston, so he's seen a live defense. He can dissect blitzes, but if he doesn't, then I don't know if I'll be watching the game with like my hands over my eyes in case Dak does anything like 2017 Dak. But that
Yeah.
that is
So
all the bad stuff I can say about Dak.
yeah, in regards to us being in trouble, we were already in trouble to begin with just because the Bucks are so loaded. But if Dak were to get zero time in the preseason, we would go from standing on the edge of the cliff to being pretty much dangling over the cliff. So that would not be a good situation for us to be in. Um, regarding to Dak's situation, which by the way, I have my own personal announcement regarding Dak, and you know how I like to come up with nicknames. I have a nickname for Jalen Smith, and a lot. I actually have a lot of nicknames for players on this team, but I'm just waiting to reveal them to closer towards the week one. But Owen's known that my nicknames have for Dak have gone, from Dink and Dak to Cement Shoes to back to Dink and Dak right now. But I have a new nickname for him for the a short period of time. But I will now be referring to him as Ice Pack Dak because he is hurt. And if y'all caught, I had an ice pack on my shoulder last episode regarding to his shoulder, so he'll be known as Ice Pack Dak until he actually um, participates in a full team drill, which he has not done that yet. So for the foreseeable future, Dak Prescott is now Ice Pack Dak. So he's not Cement Shoes and he's not Dink and Dak. He's just Ice Pack Dak because he is hurt
My
as of today.
Instagram DMs and every type of social media way that Ray can contact me is full of nicknames. I have enough nicknames for the rest of my lifetime. So I am
Mm-hmm.
looking forward to the full list
Yes.
of an infinity amount of nicknames, infinite amount of nicknames.
Yeah, but just to get into a little bit more serious stuff, the third preseason game usually traditionally is like a dress rehearsal game. So starters will usually play a lot more than the first two, and maybe like a quarter and a half up to a half. I don't think some players need a full half. Like I would like to see maybe the rookies play closer to a half, and maybe the veterans maybe a quarter. But I do think Dak needs to play a half. So if they could keep the starting offensive line in as long as possible, that would be great. However, I don't think Dak will be playing in this game because he has not participated in a full practice team drill since he hurt a shoulder 2 weeks ago. And I think it would be very unwise and stupid for the Cowboys to not have him participate in any of those drills and then throw him out in a full contact, padded game and have him conduct an 11 on 11 offense. That would be dumb. But it also tells me that whether or not the second MRI was positive and saying he was healing on schedule, it tells me that maybe they're being a little bit shady on how severe the strain was to begin with, because they can say it was a strain and keep the severity of it, because they originally said it was a 3 to 4 day injury and it's been 14 to 15 days, which is very alarming. And I do think that for the Cowboys to have any chance of making the playoffs, they need to have their starting quarterback here. And that's regardless of what I think of Dak and whether or not I think he deserved his money or whatnot. He's deserving enough for me to say that we need him to make the playoffs. Whether or not he can win the Super Bowl is a totally different conversation. But if we're going to make the playoffs, we need our starting quarterback.
Can I
So,
say one thing before you continue?
mm-hmm.
So if let's say that they did go on with the 3 to 4 days and he came back and he re-injured or worsened, how would you have dealt with that?
Then it would be a team doctor problem because they originally told him, hey, you'll be back in 3 to 4 days. That was the original timetable of return. And then it changed to 7 days, then 10 days, and 14 days.
Personally, the 7-on-7 and 11-on-11, they're not going full force anyway. And Dak is a seasoned veteran and one of the older players on this team. So these reps coming off an injury, they do mean a lot. But to how long he's been in the league, they don't mean as much as like to other players. But I would much rather this case scenario than 2 weeks ago, because he wanted to come back right away. And I think that, like I said before, the doctors and everyone else saved him from himself. Because if he came out, let's say if he came out a week later and it was still bothering him. And if he pushed through it, then we might be dealing with the Gilbert show for the next year. And I don't want that, and you don't want that.
No, I do think the Gilbert show would be a far improvement from
The Dalton show,
the 5 to 6 act show that we experienced.
because
But
last year,
who knows if we would have we don't let's just we don't need to talk about that.
we do
Um,
not.
I was more referring to not as much the 11-on-11 drills, but more in the sense of um him throwing on the sideline to a uncovered one routed receiver is completely different to him being behind the line of scrimmage with 5 offensive linemen and 5 defensive linemen and players and corners covering the receivers, where you have to put a little bit more velocity on the ball or have to fit a window or change an arm angle. I'm more talking about getting that experience and seeing where you are health wise in those situations. In that sense, because if they were to throw him in the preseason game and he goes out there and tries to put a little bit of extra mustard on a crossing route with a linebacker waiting on the middle and CD being blanketed and he popped his shoulder, it would not be a good sign because it would be not very good because he had zero participation in any of
Yeah,
those
of course.
drills for the last 2 weeks. That's basically what I'm
I'm
trying to
completely
say.
with I'm completely with
Yeah.
you. I completely agree on that.
Yeah. So it's very curious. It makes me very curious on what exactly is wrong with him because it doesn't really make sense for a quarter, especially since this injury doesn't really make sense to begin with because it's something you would get if you were throwing a baseball, which is a lot different than throwing the football. So it's just a very weird injury in the sense that usually if if your arm was sore, you'd take a few days off and come back. And this has lingered on for 2 weeks. And now we're at the point where he might not even play during the year. And just an example, when Tony came back from his herniated disc, he didn't play the entire preseason that year. And the very first game, he looked very bad and threw like 4 interceptions and they lost. And that was the 2014 year. So just just have that picture in your mind and then compare it to what's about to happen in week 1 this year.
But even Justin Jefferson, who we talked about, who was like a contact injury, he had a same general area injury, and obviously it happened differently, but they happened around the same time. And Justin hasn't, as far as I know, he hasn't come back either. I know a wide receiver is way less important than the quarterback, but an injury is an injury, and everybody's different. Everybody is different, and if Dak can play on Saturday, he can. I think he wants to, and I would not be surprised if he's not 100% and he goes out there. Even if it's for a drive and he'll come back and he can put 17 bags of ice on his shoulder and he can look at Tampa Bay and say, I'll be ready. So I fully expect him to play. He's been a Warrior even in his college days. But if the injury for some reason, knock on wood, gets worse or was really bad to begin with, then in your eyes, Tampa's a loss anyway. So sending
Oh
Gilbert
yeah,
out there,
preseason law. It's I've already put a check mark under the L department because they are the reigning Super Bowl champions. Tom Brady has 7 rings now. Of course, it could have been 8, um, but it wasn't because of Eli. And this is our not annual, our weekly congratulations to Eli Manning for saving every single NFL football fan other than the Patriots fan from Tom Brady having 8 Super Bowls and the only 16 or 19-0 perfect season. So thank you, Eli Manning. I appreciate you. Everyone follow his Twitter. He is very funny. But yeah, that's all I got for Houston. we'll see if Deshaun Watson plays.
Yeah, it'll. He got very mad at the media for constantly taking videos and everything of him. So we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see if he goes out there. I would love to see him go out there.
Yeah, I think he will. If he goes out there, I think he'll do a good job because he's a very good quarterback. But it'll be interesting. Maybe he goes out there for a little bit of tape for potential suitors like Philly or Denver or the Giants could even just be desperate enough to pick up Deshaun Watson and leave Daniel Jones on the bench this year. Who knows? The Saints could get it, like be interested in him. But I mean, there's still possibility he won't even play because of his lingering over the head suspension. But who knows about that?
He'll
But
be
I mean,
fine.
this is a Cowboys show. We can't get too ahead of ourselves and start going into NFL news.
Sadly, the league does not hold domestic violence as high up as it is ever since Zeke, which I feel like Zeke was just he. I think Roger just gave that to him to look good and to set a precedent, but it's been known for years from the police, and basically even the people came out and said that the girl was lying, that he didn't do it. And in 30 years from now, if you look back on Zeke's career, you're going to look at that 2017 season and it's going to be he was out for 6 games.
Yeah. I mean, the only real punishment the NFL has ever given based on, domestic violence or anything is the Ray Rice punishment, where he has not played a down of football since he got that first suspension. So it's honestly very weird, because if they sent that message that early on and have many other cases and a lot more slap on the wrist punishments, it's weird thinking why he's not back out there, especially since he's now married to the girl in question, and they've gone through it and had counseling and they're doing great.
There was also video proof. So that's different. Like if there was a video,
there's also video proof of Kareem Hunt as well, and he's on a football team. That's just basically
he got
what I'm trying to say.
For a few weeks.
Yeah.
Oh no, I forgot about Hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
it's all. So, but why don't we get into the news?
Great, I'm excited. This is exciting news.
Do you want to do it, or
I'll do it.
Okay.
So Owen, a lot more than me, has been there in the talks with Defy Talks Cowboys about possibly doing a show, and we have confirmed a date for that show. It will be Sunday. Did he reply on the time?
Let me see. Let me see. I do not think so. No,
so
he did not.
It will for sure be Sunday, we believe, but we will be having a show with Defy Talks Cowboys, who's a very popular on Twitter regarding the Cowboys and also on Instagram. So we'll be having him on the show to talk Cowboys and talk about the upcoming season, what he thinks about Dak, what he thinks about Hard Knocks, what he thinks about Jerry Jones, Mike McCarthy, whatever. Just pick his brain. Maybe get into a little bit on why he's a Cowboys fan, why he decided to join us and suffering in this very mediocre franchise. And if if he's optimistic about this upcoming year. So it will be, we're both very excited to have him on. It will be our first special guest. Yes. And hopefully it will be our first of many special guests, and also hopefully we can have him on multiple times this year. Yeah. And so we're just letting you guys know, and we're very excited, and we'll be sharing updates throughout the week regarding this upcoming episode. So once again, you can just make sure to be following us on America's Team, capital P, capital C on Twitter, and then All About America's Team on Instagram as well. So just be looking out for those updates. But yeah, once again, we're very excited to be getting this opportunity to talk to him. and we're just ready to get the ball rolling on that.
I
And
would like to.
yeah,
What were you gonna
and
say?
thanks to Owen, I didn't really do much regards to setting this up. It was all Owen. He was on top of it while I was kind of um, celebrating being back in Waco, and I'll just say it like that. So thank you, Owen, for doing the
Of
job,
course,
I guess
it
is
was.
a good way to put it.
I would also like to thank Nick Delahanty, the head of Delahanty Media, for starting or for jump starting the interaction. But yeah, it'll. I've personally been following him for about a few years, and if you're looking, if anyone listening is looking for a new Instagram person to follow on Cowboys, he's definitely one of the best in the business. He very funny, and with last year's debacle and 20 and years past, he is definitely one of the people that I go to when I am almost crying about losing to a team that we should have definitely beat. But yeah, we're all really looking forward and really thankful to be able to have him on, and it'll be a great episode. And hopefully, like Ray said, he will be on again in the future, and we will have other people on in the future. But definitely make sure to give him a follow. Defy Talks Cowboys, and hope you're all excited.
Yeah, I'm excited. It will be a great episode to have the day before we get back, into school that very next day. Um, and just a great chat. Hopefully he had like he I'm looking forward to talking about past disasters with him because just to see how he feels about certain things. So I'm
Yeah,
just very excited for that. But that's about all we have really for
yeah.
this episode.
And as I was exiting out the full screen, we had two people comment um, under it. Bruno Bandiria, who is from Brazil, saying hello, and Bryson's Outdoor Adventures, who was watching from Afghanistan. So thank you, the both of you, for watching, and hopefully
Interesting.
you will you have
Afghanistan.
subscribed and you will be watching in the future.
Did you just say Bryson from Afghanistan?
Yes, from Afghanistan. Thank you for both listening, and hopefully you will listen and watch in the future. But that is all that Ray and I have for today, and we look forward to next week's episode as well as tonight's Hard Knocks episodes. Ray, anything final you want to give the people?
Yeah. I enjoyed this episode. Make sure to tune in at 9 o'clock Central Time for Hard Knocks, 10 Eastern Time. For the folks in the up east, and we'll see you on Sunday. Go Cowboys!
Go Cowboys.